Over the years, U.S. tourism has been one of the key pillars of its economy. But now, a quiet crisis is unfolding. The number of international visitors to the U.S. has dropped significantly, and airports that were once bustling are now eerily empty. This shift doesn't just signal the absence of tourists, it's also causing a ripple effect. Thousands of jobs are being lost, tourism businesses are struggling, and the tourism economy is facing challenges it's never seen before. Can U.S. tourism recover? Who is paying the price for this decline? Join us as we dive into the far-reaching impacts of this tourism downturn and who's bearing the brunt. Comment 1 if you agree with the challenges the U.S. tourism industry is facing, or 0 if you disagree. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates on this hot topic. The emptiness is not just a random moment. It's a sign of a concerning trend. International tourism to the U.S. has significantly decreased over the past year. According to recent reports, tourism to the U.S. dropped by more than 10% compared to the previous year. And it's not just countries like Canada or Germany, traditionally loyal markets, that are pulling back, but even travelers from other regions are turning away from the country. This raises a big question. Why is U.S. tourism struggling? It's easy to blame factors such as strict immigration policies, high travel costs, or airports and customer service failing to meet tourist expectations. However, these factors are just the tip of the iceberg. In reality, this change reflects a larger trend in the U.S. economy and society, from the loss of trust in public infrastructure to the decline of industries related to tourism. One of the most important factors causing international visitors to hesitate about coming to the U.S. is the increasingly strict immigration policy. The complex visa process and entry procedures have made many visitors from other countries feel uneasy and uncomfortable choosing the U.S. as their destination. These regulations not only make it difficult for tourists to enter, but also create an unwelcoming image of the country. Travel costs in the U.S., from flight tickets to living expenses, are always higher compared to many other countries. In the context of a global economic crisis and rising fuel prices, traveling to the U.S. has become less accessible to many international tourists. Major cities like New York, Los Angeles, or San Francisco are notorious for their exorbitant prices, causing tourists to think twice before deciding to travel. Another contributing factor to this decline is the lack of services and infrastructure at airports and tourist destinations. The shortage of passenger support services, flight delays, and overcrowded airports have caused many tourists to feel frustrated and lose faith in the U.S. tourism industry. In fact, many tourists have shared that they feel exhausted and dissatisfied with the services while having to deal with complex and time-consuming procedures. To improve the situation of declining tourism, the U.S. needs to adopt more flexible visa policies and immigration management. Being more open to international visitors will help restore trust and encourage more tourists to return. This will not only help boost the economy, but also restore the friendly image of the U.S. among international tourists. There needs to be the creation of policies that encourage tourism, reduce costs for international tourists, from flight prices to accommodation and sightseeing expenses. The U.S. can learn from other countries in creating attractive travel packages, making it easier for tourists to access and have a better experience throughout their journey. Investing in infrastructure and customer service is key to improving the tourism situation. The U.S. needs to focus on upgrading airports, improving hotel services, and enhancing famous tourist destinations, while also reducing overcrowding and delays. Overall, the changes in U.S. tourism are not problems that can be solved overnight. However, if the U.S. can adapt and improve its policies and enhance service quality, the U.S. tourism industry will be able to recover and grow strong once again. This requires the joint effort of the government, businesses, and citizens to create a safe, accessible, and promising tourism environment for international visitors. The emptiness at the airport, where travelers no longer have to crowd and wait in line, is just a small sign of a larger trend. The decline of U.S. tourism is a valuable lesson about the need to constantly adapt and improve. We can learn from this change, seeing it not just as a temporary issue, but as an opportunity to renew and rejuvenate ourselves in the eyes of international visitors. Over the past year, the U.S. tourism industry has witnessed a significant decline in the number of international visitors. According to the latest reports, the number of international tourists has dropped by more than 10%, a figure that cannot be ignored. This has had a profound impact on the economy and the service industries that depend on tourism, including hotels, airports, restaurants, as well as entertainment and shopping services. Notably, this change has extended to traditional markets, which were once a stable source of revenue for U.S. tourism. This decline has come as a shock to the tourism industry, especially when considering the crucial role that international tourism plays in the U.S. economy. A more than 10% drop in the number of visitors over the past year clearly shows that the U.S. economy is struggling to attract international tourists. This not only reduces tourism revenue, but also severely impacts jobs related to the tourism sector, from airport staff and hotel employees to workers in restaurants and other tourist support services. One of the most striking aspects of this decline is the sudden shift in traditional markets like Canada and Germany. These countries have historically been among the top sources of visitors to the U.S. However, over the past year, the number of visitors from these countries has significantly decreased, causing many industries dependent on tourism to lose their steady growth. This can be explained by several factors, ranging from changes in tourism and immigration policies to political and global economic issues. Strict visa policies, political crises, and an unstable economic environment have eroded international tourists' confidence in the U.S. countries like Canada and Germany, which have consistently contributed large numbers of visitors, are now also turning away from the country. The decline is not limited to a decrease in the number of tourists. It has also led to the loss of thousands of jobs and billions of dollars from the tourism industry. Hotels, restaurants, and airports have been facing reduced foot traffic, forcing them to cut staff or suspend operations. This not only causes unemployment for thousands of workers in the industry, but also reduces business revenues and accelerates the economic downturn in tourism-dependent areas. Moreover, billions of dollars in service sector revenues have been lost, as international tourists no longer spend on services ranging from shopping and dining to visiting famous tourist spots. These figures reflect a clear economic downturn, impacting not only the tourism industry, but also other related sectors such as commerce, transportation, and real estate. The U.S. tourism industry is now in crisis with alarming numbers. The sharp decline in international visitors is not only a shock to the tourism industry, but also has far-reaching effects on the national economy. Sudden changes in traditional markets and the loss of thousands of jobs have created a domino effect, impacting many other service sectors. Airports, hotels, restaurants, and entertainment services are all facing significant reductions in revenue and employment. This shift is not only affecting large businesses, but also impacting small enterprises, local shops, and services. Restaurants, souvenir shops, and entertainment services in popular tourist areas now face fewer customers, declining revenues, and rising operational costs. Investors and businesses in the industry are also rethinking their strategies and development plans, as international tourism no longer generates the profits it once did. The U.S. has long been an attractive travel destination, drawing international visitors with its iconic landmarks, diverse culture, and strong economy. However, in recent years, the image of America in the eyes of tourists has gradually changed, especially for visitors from non-Western countries. Changes in security policies, airport interrogations, and stricter entry procedures have made many people feel anxious and uncomfortable when deciding to choose the U.S. as their travel destination. One of the main reasons for the decline in international visitors is the stringent questioning process at airports, particularly the inspection of luggage, phones, and other electronic devices. Many tourists have shared that they feel closely monitored and disrespected when entering the U.S., which creates an uncomfortable feeling right from the moment they step foot in the country. The thorough checks of all electronic devices, including phones and laptops, make tourists feel as though they are not being treated as guests, but rather as suspects. Additionally, issues related to visas, such as long processing times and the difficulty in obtaining a visa, are also major factors. International tourists feel that applying for a visa to the U.S. has become complicated and time-consuming, which may cause them to change their travel plans or even abandon their intentions to visit the U.S. In a context where other countries have more flexible visa policies, The US not creating a welcoming environment could lead many tourists to turn to other countries. The current immigration policy of the US is one of the primary reasons for the decline in international tourism. The tightening of immigration laws, reducing the number of visas, and imposing stricter regulations have made many tourists feel that the US is no longer an easily accessible and friendly place for international visitors. The strict requirements for background checks, interviews, and interrogations have created an invisible wall, making many hesitant and unwilling to plan trips to the US. The shortage of labor is also a significant issue directly impacting the quality of tourism services. Service sectors like hotels, restaurants, and tourist support services are facing severe staff shortages. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and changes in the labor market, many workers in the tourism industry have quit or shifted to other sectors. This has led to a decline in service quality, resulting in a poor experience for tourists when they arrive in the US. Problems such as understaffing, long wait times, and inconsistent service quality have caused many tourists to feel disappointed and unwilling to return. Especially in the hotel and restaurant industry, the lack of staff not only affects service processes, but also reduces professionalism and friendliness in the services. Tourists who are seeking comfort and attentive service during their holidays will be dissatisfied when they face shortcomings in service. This situation diminishes the appeal of the US tourism industry and makes international tourists feel that they are no longer being welcomed as they once were. The change in immigration policies and the decline in tourism service quality not only impact the tourism sector in the short term, but also have long-term consequences for the US economy. Tourism is not only a major source of income for the country, but also plays an essential role in shaping the national image, promoting cultural exchange, and creating job opportunities for millions of people. When the tourism industry declines, thousands of jobs in hospitality, transportation, retail, and services are affected, weakening local economies and related industries. Furthermore, the changing perception of the US by international tourists could impact diplomatic relations and international cooperation. Tourism plays a vital role in fostering understanding and collaboration between countries. When the US fails to attract international tourists, it could create a gap between the US and other nations, affecting trade, diplomatic relations, and international cooperation. The decline in international tourism to the US is a complex issue with deep-rooted causes. From the tightening of immigration policies and labor shortages to psychological factors that affect America's image in the eyes of international tourists, all contribute to reducing the country's appeal to visitors. To revive the tourism industry, the US needs to adopt more flexible and friendly policies toward international visitors, while improving the quality of service in the tourism sector. Only then can the US regain the trust of tourists and restore its struggling tourism industry. One of the groups most directly and severely impacted by the decline in international tourism is small businesses, particularly family-owned hotels, restaurants, and local tourism services. With the sharp drop in international visitors, these businesses are facing significant challenges in maintaining operations and staying afloat. Small hotels, especially medium-sized establishments that cannot compete with larger hotel chains, are facing a severe lack of guests. This has led to the need for staff cuts or even the closure of some branches to save costs. Reducing the number of employees has severely impacted the quality of service these hotels provide, creating a vicious cycle that makes it even harder for them to attract new guests. It's not just hotels that are suffering. Restaurants and other services are also facing heavy impacts. With the decline in international tourists, restaurants that depend on foreign visitors are also seeing a decrease in revenue. Many restaurants have been forced to lower prices, change their menus, or cut employee working hours to reduce costs. This not only makes it difficult for restaurants to stay in business, but also affects the quality of food and service. Beyond the struggles faced by small businesses, the decline in tourism has caused significant losses for the US economy as a whole. International tourism has long been an important sector contributing to national income, not just from revenue generated by lodging and dining services, but also from related industries such as transportation, shopping, entertainment, and other auxiliary activities. Forecasts suggest that this year, the US will lose up to $21 billion in international tourism revenue, a substantial amount. This decline not only affects revenues from the service industries, but also has long-term impacts on tourism-dependent regions, such as major tourist cities, beach areas, mountain resorts, and other popular attractions. According to economists, the sharp drop in international visitors is expected to have a major impact on the U.S. GDP. This year, the GDP of the U.S. could decrease by more than $23 billion due to the decline in the tourism sector. This clearly reflects that tourism plays a significant role in the national economy. And when this industry faces difficulties, the economy will also be directly impacted. Not only does the decline in tourism affect GDP, but it also has a substantial effect on the labor market. It is estimated that around 230,000 jobs will be directly impacted by this decline. Sectors such as hospitality, restaurants, transportation, and tourism services will need to cut jobs or adjust their strategies to adapt to the current situation. These jobs are not only located in tourist areas, but also impact other related service industries, from retail workers to employees working in transportation service companies. The consequences of the decline in tourism extend beyond the tourism industry and spill over into other economic sectors. As the tourism industry shrinks, related industries such as transportation, construction, agriculture, and consumer goods manufacturing are also affected. International tourists do not only spend on direct services, but also create significant demand for other products and consumer services. This reduction in tourism will force many small businesses and manufacturers to adjust their operations to adapt to the new situation. The decline in international tourism not only affects businesses in the tourism industry, but also has far-reaching consequences on the daily lives of Americans, particularly those who are not directly employed in the sector. One of the most noticeable effects is the increase in the cost of living and services. Service establishments such as restaurants, hotels, and retail stores, which have traditionally relied on international tourists, have been forced to adjust their prices to compensate for the lack of customers. This means that local residents also face price hikes for goods and services, ranging from meals at restaurants to public transportation services. Additionally, the labor shortage is a significant issue. When businesses in the tourism industry are forced to cut staff due to reduced tourist numbers, the quality of service suffers. Restaurants, hotels, and other public services are unable to maintain the same level of service quality they once did, leading to a less than optimal experience for consumers, including both domestic tourists and local residents. The shortage of staff also results in longer waiting times, from customer support calls to service at restaurants, further increasing consumer dissatisfaction. One of the measures local governments have had to implement to compensate for the loss of tourism income is tax hikes. Large tourist cities and areas, where international visitors once contributed significantly to local budgets, now have to find alternative sources of revenue to maintain public services and infrastructure development programs. This has led to increases in property taxes, sales taxes, and other service fees, putting pressure on local residents, particularly those with low and middle incomes. The rise in taxes does not only affect individuals, but also impacts small businesses, especially those that cannot pass the increased costs onto their customers. Small shops, local restaurants, and companies providing basic services are bearing the brunt of these tax increases while their revenues continue to decline significantly. This could lead many businesses to face the risk of bankruptcy, creating a vicious cycle of economic decline in these areas. Small businesses in areas dependent on international tourists are bearing the heaviest impact from the drop in tourism. Retail stores, gas stations, transportation companies, and local advertising firms, which once generated significant revenue from serving tourists, are now facing a serious decline in income. With international visitors absent, consumer demand in these areas has dropped significantly, making it difficult for these businesses to stay operational. For example, in popular tourist destinations like New York, Los Angeles, and Miami, retail stores and small services are struggling to stay in business due to the drop in tourist numbers. Advertising companies are also suffering as there are no longer large-scale advertising campaigns for events or prominent tourist spots. This not only affects the income of businesses, but also reduces the spending and investment capacity of local households. Another serious consequence of the decline in tourism is the reduction in staff across various industries. Small businesses are being forced to cut staff or reduce working hours to save costs, as their revenues no longer support maintaining the current workforce. Staff cuts are not only affecting the tourism sector, but also extending to other support service industries, such as retail, logistics, and even industries not directly related to tourism. Workers who lose their jobs or have their working hours reduced face significant financial difficulties. For an extended period, they not only have to deal with a loss of income, but may also lose social benefits associated with their jobs, such as health insurance, retirement plans, and other perks. This not only impacts their personal lives, but also affects the economic stability of the community as a whole. Do you agree with the impact that the decline in international tourism is having on the daily lives of American citizens? This issue not only affects those working in the tourism industry, but also deeply impacts all of us. If you agree, please comment 1 below this video. If you don't agree, comment 0. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us. Now, let's continue following the unfolding developments. Tourism has long played a vital role in the U.S. economy, not only generating substantial revenue, but also creating millions of jobs and fostering the growth of many other industries. However, the significant decline in international tourism is leaving the U.S. economy without sustainability and facing difficulties in maintaining self-sufficiency. As the number of international tourists declines, service industries such as hotels, restaurants, transportation, retail, and entertainment are all facing reduced revenues. This forces the U.S. economy to rely more on domestic sources of income, while tourism and related sectors, which have historically played a crucial role in maintaining economic stability, are now struggling. Instead of the U.S. economy developing sustainably based on industrial diversification, it now faces a shortage of income from tourism, resulting in a slowdown in economic growth. The decline of the tourism industry is not only affecting businesses within the hotel sector, but also causing a domino effect, weakening other industries. Airports, transportation systems, amusement parks, restaurants, and local services that were once reliant on international tourists are now experiencing serious revenue drops. When tourist numbers fall, travel and transportation companies no longer have enough customers to sustain operations. Car rental services, public transportation, and cargo transportation businesses are all affected, weakening the supply chain and disrupting economic activities in many areas. Additionally, entertainment industries like movie theaters, amusement parks, museums, and sports events are also feeling the impact as international visitors are no longer present. It's not just large businesses that are affected, but even small retail stores, souvenir shops, and service providers are facing a decline in customers, leading to reduced revenues and other financial issues. These small business owners not only lose a critical source of income, but also face the need to reduce staff and cut services in order to minimize operational costs. One of the most visible and noticeable consequences of the decline in tourism is the emptiness at major U.S. tourist landmarks. International airports, iconic amusement parks, museums, and legendary tourist spots are no longer bustling with activity as they once were. A clear sign of this decline is the dramatic drop in visitors at major attractions like Walt Disney World, Las Vegas, and famous national parks. This emptiness not only affects businesses directly operating at tourist destinations, but also reduces the attractiveness of the U.S. to international visitors. Major airports, which were once crowded with passengers from around the world, are now quiet, with check-in counters and boarding gates left empty. Amusement parks, which once attracted millions of visitors each year, are now facing lower attendance, leading to business stagnation and negative impacts on jobs and auxiliary income sources. This also creates a shock for the supporting tourism industries, such as travel agencies, transportation services, and tour operators. When tourist destinations become empty, it means that businesses will struggle to maintain operations and must find ways to adapt to the new situation. While the decline in tourism may be a short-term issue, it also creates long-term effects on the U.S. economy. When the tourism industry struggles, thousands of jobs in related industries are lost, leading to a downturn in employment and income in many areas, especially those that heavily depend on international visitors. Furthermore, this decline also affects manufacturing and export industries, reducing the sustainability and resilience of the economy. In the long run, the loss of key tourism landmarks could also affect the image of the U.S. on the global stage. Tourism is not only an important source of revenue, but also a tool for promoting the country's culture, values, and appeal. When international visitors stop coming to the U.S., it will impact the country's cultural reach and influence globally. If the current decline in international tourism to the U.S. continues, the consequences will be extremely serious for the national economy. Projections show that over the next 5 years, the U.S. could lose hundreds of billions of dollars from international tourism, a significant source of revenue not only for the tourism industry, but also for the economy as a whole. This loss is not just a financial figure, but will also affect millions of jobs across tourism, hospitality, transportation, and other related services. If this trend persists, businesses in the tourism sector will struggle to remain operational, leading to the loss of job opportunities for millions of workers. Families, especially those whose income depends on the tourism industry, will face severe financial difficulties. This will also reduce the income of communities, leading to a decline in the quality of life for many families, which in turn will have a long-term negative impact on the economic development of these regions. One of the most obvious consequences of the decline in tourism is the loss of livelihood opportunities for millions of American families. Families who rely on tourism or related services will face job losses and reduced income. Workers in hotels, restaurants, transportation companies, amusement parks, and other hospitality services will be the hardest hit. When tourism businesses and related industries can no longer sustain their operations, job numbers will decrease, and millions of families will have to cope with unemployment. Additionally, many families living in popular tourist areas will face a decline in their quality of life. Basic services such as healthcare, education, and public services will be affected as the revenue from tourism can no longer sustain these operations. This will not only impact those directly working in tourism, but also have a wide-reaching effect on other sectors within the community. What makes the decline in tourism particularly severe is the loss of America's iconic tourist destinations. International airports, major amusement parks, museums, and famous landmarks will gradually become quieter and lose their vibrancy. These locations are not only cultural symbols of the U.S., but also contribute significantly to revenue from international tourism. When international tourists stop visiting, these landmarks will lose a key part of their appeal, reducing America's competitive edge compared to other countries. Famous destinations such as Walt Disney World, Las Vegas, and New York City have become global symbols, attracting millions of visitors every year. However, if the decline in tourism continues, these icons could become deserted, negatively impacting the entertainment industry and diminishing America's influence on the global stage. The absence of international tourists will make it harder for tourism companies and supporting industries to maintain operations, leading to the closure or scaling back of many tourist sites. Restoring international tourists' trust will be a significant challenge for the U.S. Once a country's image has been tarnished, particularly in the eyes of international visitors, regaining friendliness and hospitality is not an easy task. Tightened immigration policies, stringent visa and entry checks, coupled with a lack of service quality and a poor tourist experience, have created an unfavorable impression among travelers. Regaining trust and rebuilding America's image as a welcoming and accessible destination will require time and effort. Not only will changes in immigration and tourism policies be necessary, but service quality will also need to be improved to ensure tourists feel safe and comfortable when visiting the U.S. This requires a long-term strategy and collaboration between the government, businesses, and communities to transform the image and rebuild trust among international travelers. The future of U.S. tourism faces significant challenges if the decline continues. The loss of hundreds of billions of dollars, reduced livelihood opportunities for millions of families, and the erosion of iconic landmarks are serious consequences that the U.S. economy must confront. Meanwhile, regaining trust from international tourists will not be an easy task and will require substantial time to achieve. However, if the U.S. can adapt and create a more welcoming tourism environment, the restoration of the tourism industry and the protection of the economy remain achievable goals for the future. As the costs of services and goods continue to rise, One of the most effective ways for Americans to protect themselves and save money is by opting for domestic travel. With the decline in international tourists, popular tourist destinations in the U.S. may become quieter and more affordable. This presents an opportunity for Americans to explore lesser-known destinations that still offer rich, diverse, and exciting experiences. Instead of traveling abroad, domestic trips to smaller cities, towns, and national parks can help Americans save costs while also boosting the local economy. These places are often less crowded and more reasonably priced compared to well-known tourist spots. Exploring domestic locations not only saves money but also offers unique experiences that tourists rarely have the chance to enjoy. In addition to adjusting travel plans, Americans also need to focus more on personal finances as the economy faces challenges. Cutting unnecessary expenses and finding ways to save in daily activities are effective strategies to protect personal finances. Moreover, supporting small businesses in the community is a crucial measure to not only help the local economy, but also create jobs for the community. Small businesses, especially those affected by the decline in tourism, need the support of locals to keep their operations running. Americans can shop at local stores, dine at small restaurants, or use services at small businesses instead of large chain stores. This will help sustain the local economy and create job opportunities for workers. To protect the tourism industry and rebuild America's friendly image for international tourists, Americans need to voice their concerns and advocate for more welcoming and open policies from national leaders. One of the major issues today is immigration policy and stringent visa procedures, which not only make international tourists feel unwelcome, but also impact the entire tourism industry. Americans can encourage policies that maintain hospitality and ensure international tourists feel safe and comfortable when visiting the U.S. Political decisions aimed at improving service quality, reducing bureaucratic red tape, and creating an accessible environment will help attract international visitors back. Additionally, supporting the growth of domestic tourism should also be encouraged, especially during times of global economic instability. In the context of the challenges facing U.S. tourism, protecting oneself and the community is crucial. Americans can do this by spending wisely, prioritizing domestic travel, and supporting small businesses in the community. At the same time, advocating for friendly and open policies from the government will help rebuild the image of a welcoming America, thereby aiding in the recovery and sustainable growth of the tourism industry in the future. These actions will not only protect the economy, but also contribute to the stability and prosperity of the country. In the current context, with noticeable changes in the tourism industry and their widespread impact on the U.S. economy, the crucial question we need to ask is, are Americans ready to pay the price for this change? While many may feel uneasy about the economic and societal shifts, there are also signs that the unity and creativity of the community could help America overcome this challenging period. However, change is never easy, and adapting to new challenges will require openness, flexibility, and commitment from all sectors of society. Without timely action to improve the image and policies surrounding tourism, as well as reviving the struggling service industry, the American dream could truly be at risk. If the changes in tourism, industry, and the economic environment are not addressed, it will not only affect the U.S. economy, but also strongly impact the core values that this country has always prided itself on: hospitality, prosperity, and continuous innovation. The American dream, with all that it represents, freedom, opportunity, and success, is not something easily lost. However, for that dream to continue, America must change, not only in its tourism policies, but also in its approach to global issues like climate change, sustainable development, and restoring faith in national values. If a path to adapt to current challenges can be found, and innovation in all fields continues to be encouraged, the American dream can still be maintained and flourish. In summary, in a rapidly changing world, America stands at a critical crossroads. The determination and timely action from the government, businesses, and the community will determine whether the American dream can be reborn or will gradually fade with time. Protecting and restoring the tourism industry, creating a welcoming and sustainable environment for international visitors, and especially safeguarding the domestic economy will be the key to preserving this dream for future generations. Thank you for watching the video. If you agree with this perspective, don't forget to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe to support us. Please leave a comment below the video with the number 1 if you agree, or 0 if you disagree. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. See you in the next video.